Let's jump in. Hey, how are you?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Are you over the age of 18 and a Bible believer?
I'm 23 and a Bible believer.
Perfect. How long have you been a Bible believer for?
My whole life, but if you want me to be completely honest with you, probably 16 years old.
Okay, all right, I got you. And do you lean to towards any certain denomination, or are you just more like open?
Man, I've been to a bunch of them, but right now I'm in a Lutheran church right now. So,
All right, I
but
got
I've
you.
been to a lot. I've been all over the place. I've been non-dom. I've been what else? Methodist. I've been Presbyterian. I've
You're
been
just kind of going where you
Baptist.
feel the closest connection to God.
Say it one more time.
Are you just kind of looking for where you feel the most connection to God?
Not really. I kind of just the I have a certain aspect of what I like in church, and I like the word to actually be preached. I like them to actually read from the Bible, and then so the one I'm at right now, they do that a lot, and then he also will talk about he'll just have like a 15-minute after the fact that he's already read it. Like he'll make sure I don't know. Just a lot of the other churches I've been to didn't really do that much. They would just I guess intertwine both the person's views or the pastor's view and the Bible. And so it's kind of cool to see that this church they always practice reading the Bible and uh, and then giving their sermon afterwards. I also really like the communion. The church I'm at right now does communion every single Sunday, and so you're just in remembrance and an appreciation for the sacrament, for Jesus giving his bread of life and his blood for us. And so, I don't know. It's just those are the aspects I guess I like about the church I'm in right now. So,
For sure. Thank you for sharing all
but
that.
where I feel most close, I'm sorry, but where I feel most close with God, just because I'm so sorry, is honestly most of the time alone. It's honestly most of the time when I'm by myself is when I feel the more close to God, is when I talk to him the most. It's normally just when I'm by myself, whether I'm working or doing schoolwork or whatever it is. If I'm by myself, I just find myself talking to him or being in his presence the most.
Yeah, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Lots of people that I talk to feel, a closeness with their God or their spirits that they work with and stuff like that. And they tend to feel that more in an intimate manner, typically when they're alone. Yeah, sure, you can experience that with other people with a good community, but it seems that the parts that really get to people are the parts when they feel the most intimate alone with their deities. So I can understand that.
I think, man, I don't know, kind of over a period of time, I got baptized when I was, I think, like 6 or 7 years old. And I was probably seven, maybe even eight, but 7 or 8, probably seven. And ever since I got baptized, I'd always get this feeling throughout my entire body. Anytime I felt his presence, or anytime I talked to him and felt him with me, or anytime I sang for him, or whatever I did, I could always feel his presence in my entire body. It was like a quiver that went down my entire spine, throughout my entire body. And it was a quiver that I never really experienced with anything else. And so from the time I was 7 to 16 years old, I never really fully understood what that quiver was. And when I was 16, I did some crazy stuff when I was 16 and realized what that quiver was, and realized that that quiver was the Holy Spirit that was given to me when I got baptized. And so I've just always had this quiver where I could talk with this quiver. I could ask it a question and it would answer me through this quiver. I could ask if it wanted me to be watching this video, or if it wanted me to be doing something, and I would feel this quiver down my entire spine. And so I guess like it's just something that I've experienced throughout my entire life almost at this point, that I just can't really. It's supernatural to me. It's nothing else can explain it. Like for instance, I love singing, but I would never get the feeling that I get when I'm praising God versus listening to my favorite songs. I never get that feeling. Even if it's the song I love the most, if it's not about God or if it's not praising God, I wouldn't get that quiver. And so I guess from the time I was 7 to now, it's just been something that I've just been in contact with, and it's truly helped me and been a guidance in my life to get me to the point where I'm at today.
Yeah, I think that that's incredibly interesting. I would like to ask how do you use this like question and quiver responses, just like, oh, should I watch this type of video or something like that, or do you use it for like I would say more important things for your life? Like, are you asking things like, should I put the financial effort into buying this car, that's going to last me the next 7 years or
Probably
something like
less
that?
of
Like,
that.
so
Probably less.
so less of those kind of things, but more of, like the day-to-day smaller things.
It's more, yeah, it's more to the day to day, just small things. If I feel like I shouldn't be watching something, sometimes I know that if I know that it's not a video I should be watching, then I'll just have that quiver sometimes, just kind of remind me almost that I shouldn't watch something like that. And then I'll just move past it. You know what I mean? And it's something
Sure.
I've experienced day to day. So it's kind of hard to like, I don't know. And then it's like it answers me when I'm reading my Bible. It answers me when it's kind of, I don't know. It's just something I've always experienced, and I don't know, something I believe in.
No, it's okay. I completely understand that. I used to be a Christian for a solid amount of time, and I had the same feeling, and I would use it the same
You
way.
still get it?
Huh?
Do
Absolutely.
you
Oh,
still
yes.
get the same?
Yes.
Cool.
100%. And it was one of the things when I started, deconstructing and stuff like that, however unwilling that was, that I realized I still felt it. And that was something I held on to for a while, believing that, I still had God. But as over time went, and even now, when I call myself a full-on atheist, I still get those feelings, and I don't consider it to have ever been the Holy Spirit. I thought that that's what it was because I didn't have any other, terminology or understanding of it. But today, I just think it's me. I just think it's me and my brain working out and stuff like that. And I think that just because we make some actions, that doesn't mean that we in our own minds, due to our own moral compasses, know better. So, for example, when it comes to watching,
Doesn't really make
when it
sense.
comes to watching certain adult entertainment online, as a
Yeah.
Christian, that was something I struggled with, and I prayed to God for help and stuff like that. And I felt like, the Holy Spirit would, help me with that. Like, hey, don't watch that. It's not pleasing. Cool. And that was great. And then after I became a Christian, I, didn't really have that feeling for a while, but then I started to get it again. And I was like, well, this doesn't make sense because, if it's not God reaching out to me, what is it? Maybe it is God, but if it's not, what else could
Well,
it
it can
be?
be a
And I
demon.
realized
It can be a demon.
a demon's going to tell me to not watch porn.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, demons lie all the time. Demons don't need you to do good. They don't need you to do bad things every time they interact with you. They could have you do good things. I would argue from the Christian perspective that Islam gives the people that are following Islam, the Muslims, it gives them probably 95% of really good truths, really good things about certain people. Really, I mean, like, but the other 5% is what is a lie. And so, to me, it's like the devil tricked Muhammad when he went to him in the cave. And in our book, it says that the devil will appear as an angel of light. And so Muhammad hears or gets this revelation from an angel in a cave where he says that he feels like he was possessed, and that's like written down by his followers for the whole day after. And then he gives this revelation of Allah. And I would argue that revelation from Allah was a fallen angel's words, a demon's words, and it probably has 95% truth, good things. But that 5% is what could save your soul. And that 5% of what they're told that if they believe in, they will die and Allah will never accept them. If they believe that Jesus could be God, Allah would kill them, They can't believe that. They can't believe he died on a cross. They can't believe, even though these are historical like just facts at this point that over 99% of every single historian and scholar writes did happen. That Jesus Christ was a person who died on a cross, and the Romans were the ones who crucified him. And you have historians, from that time period who are talking about it. Like Josephus, for example. And then you also have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are all written in different parts of the world. Not parts, but different countries. Every single one of the first copies of those books are found in different countries. And so we knew that they at one time were in communication, but at the time that the books were written, we know that they weren't written in one place at one time. And they all four correlate with each other.
All right. So where you said a lot. There's a lot to address.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm enjoying the conversation. But so the reason why I guess like that didn't work for me, and I understand the whole part from Islam and stuff like that. As a Christian, I would have answered that as it may not have been the devil; it could have been another angel, which I would have considered to be a demon as well, because they were angels. Because the Bible says that or Paul says that if anyone or an angel from heaven, it doesn't necessarily specify it has to be the quote unquote devil.
Absolutely.
So
exactly.
it could have been any.
So,
but Jesus himself also in the Bible says, that when the religious leaders said, "Oh, you're casting out devils with the help of devils," he said, "No, because that's Satan going against Satan, and the kingdom going against itself cannot stand." So if the devil is trying to tempt me into watching porn and then sending a demon to try to convince me not to, that's the devil working against the devil, and Jesus said that can't happen. So that's why, from my perspective, I would not have accepted that it was a demon telling me not to watch porn, because the demon wants me to, and the devil wants me to, because that'll take me away from God. And
I was just saying that technically speaking, it could have been an angel. I'm not saying that it definitely was. I'm just saying, like, technically speaking, though, there have been times in the past where people have gotten revelations of good things from demons. Like, this is a just known fact all throughout the Bible, all throughout the Old Testament. I mean, I don't know.
Can you give me a time in the Old Testament when a demon revealed something good to somebody?
Well, when a demon helped some, like a civilization, or when a demon
you said a demon revealed like good things to people even all throughout the Old Testament. Can you? I'm just trying to think of an example so that I understand what.
Here, yeah. Let's ask AI. Let's just do this. Hold on. Let me see if I can go on my computer.
Sure, but while you're looking for that, I just to finish up my point is the reason why I feel that I stopped looking at that kind of stuff online is because I did the research and I understood how much of it was done against the will of the person who was in the video, and how much of it was abuse or peer pressure, things of that nature. And while I understand that there's a great chunk out there that is uploaded by couples that are just trying fun stuff out in the bedroom, and that's all nice and fun, you can't fully filter out which one is and which one isn't. So because of that, I feel like I don't want to contribute to that. It's against my morals, which have nothing to do with God or Christianity or anything of that case.
Right. Okay,
and because of that, I have decided that I'm not going to watch it anymore. I don't like watching those kind of videos because I don't want to end up somehow supporting something where someone is being used in a way that they don't consent to.
I understand. I got you. So, me too, but also, like, I feel like this view that I have is more of a objective view. Like, I think that you would have to say without a God that it's a subjective view that you have, and other people could love doing it, and other people could love watching the abuse and love doing all that crazy stuff. And you would have to, almost in your viewpoint, say that their opinion matters just as much as yours.
Well, I could definitely say that they're entitled to their opinion, but I could say due to my moral framework, what they're doing is wrong, and I can explain how. I can definitely say that, or I can definitely agree with you that my position on morality is subjective, because I think it is by definition, and I think that just because morality for a Christian comes from a God, that doesn't make it any less subjective. It's just subjective to the mind of that God.
Right, but then you had other gods during that time period where they were telling them to sacrifice their babies so that the sun would come up, or that they were telling the
Sure.
man, what is the Canaanite? I mean, like they did just all these different things so that there wouldn't be, I mean, all these sacrifices and rituals so that there wouldn't be the sun coming down, like the sun staying. You know what I mean? Like crazy stuff, just crazy stuff all throughout. I mean, I know there's definitely more than just the sun, but I mean, I probably that's the one I do know that they did, and it's all over the world.
Yeah, people in the ancient Near East and ancient world did a whole bunch of horrific things to try to appease
But
their
see,
gods.
it's like subjective to say though that that's horrific because their entire community believed that it was good, and so if you have an
Sure.
entire community like a country that believes that, like let's say North Korea, what if North Korea was the size of Russia and they were doing that to their people in Russia? With the population of Russia, like, are we going to act like we wouldn't try to like change that really quickly? I think we would, and
Sure,
I think the
I
reason
think if we looked at something like the Holocaust in history, we could see that where the world
Or the
wars were fought
Balkans.
over it, and we went over
the
and we tried to stop
Bolsheviks,
it. Sure,
right,
sure.
right.
But so my understanding of objective and subjective is simply it is mind dependent, and if God has a mind where He is trying to communicate his morals to us to follow, that is still subjective. And I think if you look in the Bible, you can see multiple examples of God's morals being subjective. And I think the biggest one that comes to my mind is God saying, "Thou shalt not kill," and then in 2 Samuel 12. He
Murder.
he
Thou shalt
yeah
not
yeah
murder.
I know, yeah, you're right, thou shalt not murder. But then in 2 Samuel 12 he takes the life of an innocent infant and then has women be raped.
Wait, so
I don't
so
see
that,
and I
that
don't see
story,
how
hold on,
that
hold on. Where's
is
the women?
justified.
Where's the women being? Hold on. Where's the women being? And where does God say that's okay?
So in 2 Samuel 12, the prophet Nathan goes to King David and is like, "Hey, you did a bad thing. You took someone else's wife and you had him killed in the front line of battle." And so David's like, "You're right, I did something bad. I'm sorry." And Nathan said that God has put away your sin, but basically because this happened, someone's got to pay. And so the
Right.
people that pay are David's infant son, who God himself strikes ill for 7 days until it eventually dies. And then God himself
Right.
says, "I will cause evil to rise up from your house, and I will take your wives and give them to your neighbor in the sight of all the sun." And what we see at the end of chapter 16 is David's own son tries to usurp the throne. And when David flees the capital, David's son enters the capital, and then at the advice of someone who speaks for God, took his father's women and raped them in front of everyone on top of the rooftop of the kingdom.
Right, but these aren't these are just stories of people who God would condemn and God would say is not doing his like not following him.
No,
Like,
well, they have to be
God is
following
very,
him
very-
because God said that he will cause this to happen. And then when the time came for it to happen, he had someone who speaks for him give the same advice.
Well, just because God says that something's going to happen doesn't mean that He condemns that thing for happening.
I understand that just because God said something is going to happen, cool. I'm not saying that God said this is going to happen. God said he will make this happen. He is cursing David because of his quote unquote sin. So,
Right.
so when I'm talking about examples of God's morals, he's saying not to oppress people, not to commit murder and stuff like that, and then he goes and he kills an infant and has women be raped. Where is the justice and the consistency in that?
Where's the justice and consistency in that? Well,
because if God is supposed to be this good moral being who is supposed to be objective.
I can't pull them
Yeah,
out right now.
yeah,
so
absolutely.
I don't
Let me-
really have them in front of me,
do you
but if
have
you can
a,
read those
um,
exact verses? Then I probably would have a better opinion on it.
Absolutely, we can read it. Do you have a preferred version?
ESV is my favorite version.
Oh, perfect. I got a hard copy of that right next to me. Hold on. But yeah, I think that there is a complete difference between something's going to happen and then I'm going to make this happen. And if you're a God who is all good, all just, and the arbiter of these objective morals, then what are you doing telling people that you can't oppress people and can't murder people, and then you murder a baby and have women be raped for a crime that they did not do?
That's the thing, though, is God's not telling them to do that thing those people are doing that thing.
But God said He's going to
God
make it
actually
happen.
condemns these things. But God actually condemns these things, and then also gives us, I believe it's even before this, but gives us reasons why when we take over when the Israelites take over a nation and they take the women and children, they have to marry that woman, and only after they marry that woman and take in their children, they can begin to have sex. I'm sorry, I don't even think I can say that. But
No, it's okay.
Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Yeah, we can definitely address that next, but I got the verses up for you.
Yeah, what's up?
So, starting in 2 Samuel, chapter 12, we can start in verse 9. This is the prophet speaking. Why have you despised the Lord, to do what is evil in his sight? You have struck down Uriah the Hittite at the sword, and have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes, and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of the sun. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. And David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, The Lord has put away your sin, you shall not die. Nevertheless, because by this deed you have utterly scorned the Lord, the child who is born to you shall die. And Nathan left and went to his house. And the Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and he became sick. Therefore David sought God on the behalf of the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. And the elders of his house stood beside him to raise him from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food with them. And on the seventh day the child died. So the punishment that we see God give is He's going to take David's son that was just born to them, and it says that he struck the child ill for 7 days. And then when he says in verse 10, or in verse 11, that the Lord says, so this is God speaking, his own words, I will rise up evil against you out of your own house. His own son, basically, is what he's talking about, Absalom. And I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of the sun. That is fulfilled in 2 Samuel chapter 16, starting in verse 20. This is when David's own son, Absalom, overtakes the city, and David flees. And Absalom said to Ahithophel, Give me your counsel, what shall we do? And Ahithophel said to Absalom, Go into your father's concubines whom he has left to keep the house, and all Israel will hear that you've made yourself a stench to your father, and the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened. So they pitched a tent for Absalom onto the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Now in those days the counsel of Ahithophel gave was as if one consulted with the word of God, and his counsel was esteemed by both David and Absalom. So we see that God is saying that he is going to cause this to happen. And then when it's time for this to happen, he talks to someone who speaks for him. And David and Absalom both admit this. And he gives this advice so that Absalom is told to take his father's women in front of everyone. So in an act of dominance and power, he takes his father's women.
Where do we see the taking of the women?
I just read it in 2 Samuel 16, starting in verse 20.
No,
20
I see
and 23.
23, the advice of...
So verse 20 to 23. If you want the exact verse, we would say in verse 22,
right
so they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and Absalom went in to his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel.
Oh, okay. Went into the father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Is that what you're saying? That's him going in and graping the women?
Yes, because the context is that this is in wartime, and they have entered into the capital, and they are taking the women of the former king and overpowering them publicly so that everyone can understand that King David, fuck that guy, he's out of power. This is the king now, Absalom.
No doubt, but I just don't see how that means that there were women that were getting graped. I don't know. I don't understand what you...
Yeah, sure. If let's see if we can spell this out.
If
there's a war happening,
I mean, I can tell you why he killed his child. I can tell you why he did that.
Sure.
And that also happened before.
If a woman is taken in war,
This
and
happened.
taken physically because she was the wife of the former king. Is that consent?
Say it one more time. Well, it doesn't say.
If we are in war and the wife of the former king is taken and used publicly to make a point, is that a consenting relationship?
No, but it doesn't say that.
It does. Why was Absalom advised to do this?
Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. That's all it says about.
But why? Why was he given that advice?
There's no anything about what happened. It's literally just saying that he went into the concubines in the sight of all of Israel.
Yeah. Why did he do that?
To show that he was in power now. That he was
okay.
The one.
So it wasn't. Hey, I think you're pretty. Do you want to hook up? This was. I'm going to use you to. I'm going to use you to make a point that I am in power now.
Hold on. There are no women in this at all.
The concubines are David's women.
No, that's not.
What's a concubine? What's a concubine?
That's his. I don't even know.
It's a woman that belongs to him. It's a woman that he is technically not married to, but he sleeps with. So David at this point had like 7 wives, and he had God knows how many concubines.
I see what you're saying.
So Absalom, and it says in verse.
A place. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're okay. Don't worry about it. And it says in verse 21, when Ahithophel said, "Go into your father's concubines, whom he has left to keep the house, and all Israel will hear that you made a stench to your father, and the hands of those who are with you will be strengthened." I see
what you're saying.
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So this is to make a point of political power. He's taking the women of the former king and then using them physically in front of everyone to show that now he's top dog. And that context does not show a man and a woman consenting to sex. That shows a man taking women.
No,
and
I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree with you.
So this curse was given by God in 2 Samuel 12, and then the man who speaks for God in this chapter 16, gave the same advice to Absalom when he asked, "What do I do?" So Absalom did the right thing. He went to the man who speaks for God and says, "What do I do?" And this is what he was told to do. And this makes the curse that God gave come true. Yeah. So I God's will be done. This is the punishment God gave. How could a good and just God, who is the arbiter of objective morality, give rape as a punishment to someone who didn't even do the crime?
I believe. I mean, he also calls for the slaughtering of all the Canaanite women and children and all of their animals and everybody. I mean, I don't. I'm not the one who I guess gets to claim moral high ground on God who created me.
So I think you're just proving my point more, that this is all subjective even to God. Sometimes you can kill the babies and sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can attack the people, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can rape the women and sometimes you can't.
But it's not God who is making this happen.
So in 2 Samuel 12, when it says, "I will cause this to happen," who's the I?
You'll cause the curse and the evil.
And the curse involves raping women and killing babies, right?
But it also could be just God allowing for, as we see in Job, a demon to go influence his life, and he's not going to step in.
That's still God's fault, because this demon in the Job story couldn't do anything without God's permission.
It's not God's fault if there's the son who goes and does this, and it's not God who is forcing him to do it. It's the son's fault for doing this.
It's the son's fault for listening to God's advice?
The son didn't listen to God's advice.
Yes, because the advice that was given to him was God's curse that God wanted to happen.
The advice was told to The advice was told to his dad that there was about to be this curse put upon him. Right? It wasn't going to his son. It was going to his dad.
From the prophet Nathan, sure, but Ahithophel
that's what I'm saying.
Spoke for God, and that's why Absalom went to Ahithophel.
Right, but Absalom didn't even probably know about this.
Sure.
I don't know if he did or not, but
sure.
But there's, and
that just shows even more how this was God doing it, not man.
Well, no, it shows that God could have allowed evil to go into his house. In my opinion.
Sure. Okay. So in 2 Samuel 12, in verse 11, Does it say, "Thus says the Lord, I will allow evil to rise up from your house," or does it says, "I will raise
I
up
will
evil"?
make
Okay, all
right. He
right,
will
good.
raise it up. He
Good.
will
So
allow it
God is
to.
not saying that he's doing some passive action here. God is very actively causing this to happen.
Sure, and I'm not disagreeing.
Okay. So again,
He allows and
in the
causes.
Christian worldview, according to the Bible, is rape wrong? Objectively.
Yes.
Then why is God
Objective.
giving it as a punishment to someone who didn't
Well,
even do the crime?
I don't know that. I don't know that this was. So what's the first verse you showed me again? Is it 13?
The first one I showed you is in 2 Samuel 12, starting in verse 10. I read you 10 to 18.
Yeah. Okay. I will raise up evil against you from your own household. I will even take your wives before your eyes and give them to your companion, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. So no doubt you're not wrong. But do we know that it was grape? Like, do these women want to keep their
Do you
position and power and want to sleep with him because they'll be able to keep it if they do? And so, like, I guess that's kind of
that
another
doesn't
point.
sound like consent. That sounds like desperation.
Well, we don't.
That
We
sounds
don't know
like doing
that.
what you need to do to survive.
Well, sometimes that's what people did back then,
Okay, so then that's rape.
but not if they wanted it. Not if they
They-
wanted to do that.
Can you show me their consent?
wanted to
Can you show me any passage that shows that they consented in any way?
Can you show me that there wasn't any? And
Sure,
that's
I
my
can show you
point.
the context that shows that in war, these women were taken to make a political point to the rest of the people. It was an act of power and not an act of, hey, I think you're cute, or hey, I think you're sexy, let's go fuck.
No doubt. That's not what I'm not at all saying.
There is nowhere that talks about how the women said yes, but we do see the context is shown that, what do I do now to show that I'm in power? Take the former king's women. That is seen so many times all throughout history, and it is never a position of sex. It's a position of rape because you are establishing your power as the next ruler.
All I'm saying
So
is
why
that
are we suddenly saying, well, just because the context shows that it's in war times and this decision was made for them and they were taken by men and this was done publicly to make a
I have no
political
idea.
point,
You could be-
but we're
you
going to
could
go
be
ahead
right.
and say
I'm
it's
not saying you're
consensual?
wrong.
Okay.
I'm not,
all right.
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm
Okay.
just saying, I guess, like, we don't have the context of why. You're arguing that there is, in historical context, that it happens in a lot of
Well,
cultures.
I think that there's
I
biblical
don't know how much it
context.
happens in Jewish culture. I don't know how much it happened in Jewish culture during this time.
Oh, it happened in Jewish culture a lot. Have you ever read the Talmud?
Dude, have you ever read the Babylonian Talmud?
I have not, no. There's a lot I still have
Yeah.
to read. But have you read the Talmud?
Yes, there's certain verses I haven't read the whole thing.
Okay, so like something you mentioned earlier that talks about how they could take women from places that they've captured and take them back to their place and make them their wives and stuff like that. The Talmud, the Talmud talks about how the reason why they mostly did that was because soldiers would rape women after the war, and then they would take the women that they raped and take them home, and then start the
Right.
process to make them their wives because they raped them. They raped them, so
Right,
now
but
they have to
that's-
take them
but
home
hold
and
on.
make them their wives.
But that's
So
not what
even
my-
so
that's
even
not-
the
hold
the
on, hold on,
Jewish
hold on. The
wait, well, I'm
Talmud
almost
to
done with
me-
my point, sir.
real quick.
Please.
Okay, sorry.
I only have like another sentence.
I'm sorry.
So no, it's okay. I understand. There's a lot to say about these things. But in the Talmud, it's written by rabbis who are talking about their scriptures and the historical understanding of the time of what it was, and they even admit that it was because of rape. Rape was running rampant,
Absolutely,
all by
but
the
Jesus-
soldiers to the people and to even in the royalties.
Right.
So
But this is why Jesus went against these Jewish priests of all different. I mean, Pharisees, Sadducees. I mean, he went against everyone in what he did when he lived. He was pointing at everyone and showing them that they were not even following the God that they claimed to follow. And he said, "You would recognize me. You would see me in front of your eyes." To them, and they would pick up stones to stone him. Like, I don't know. To me, they're not like the Talmud is, and I think the Babylonian Talmud is just purely demonic in my opinion. But the Talmud, I think, just pulls from the Babylonian Talmud, and there's some stuff in it that is, I guess, not as crazy as the Babylonian one, but the Babylonian one's crazy, which is what the Kabbalah use. It's their book, and it's their mysticism, the Jewish mysticism. And so a lot of the priests today are in the Kabbalah and use that book, the Babylonian Talmud, which gives you access to like learning magic, learning casting spells, all sorts of stuff. Just interesting.
So if rape is objectively wrong in the Christian worldview, why does this good, just God use it as a punishment? Or at the very least, even if you don't want to go with that,
yeah.
Even if you don't want to go with that, I don't know how you could escape Deuteronomy 22, 28 and 29, that talks about, again, the laws of God, that if a virgin is raped, that the man, and she's unengaged, that the man just has to pay her father for her, and then she's his wife forever. Again, this is another example of where the law under God
but this is also,
allows
like,
rape.
Deuteronomy is right, but Deuteronomy, like, I think we don't understand sometimes like how far back these books were written and what was going on in time periods where these books were written. And in a lot of these cultures, especially the first 5 books of the Bible, these cultures are extremely, extremely small and very hedonistic, like everywhere.
Sure.
And so if we're looking at it in that light and understanding that these cultures had like their housing was probably so terrible compared to our housing today, right? Like they didn't have houses, they didn't have, like, it was completely different. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we just have to recognize that the people during those time periods, I mean, were not great people, hedonistic. I mean, the Jewish people, the Israelites, come out of slavery and they go straight to having slaves.
Yes,
you know
because
what I mean?
God said they could.
Well, because everybody around them was having or had slaves too, but God also gave like rules of how they could treat their slaves, what they could do to their slaves, how they had to give rights to their slaves.
No, that's not
and
true.
So at that time there were no other cultures at all who were treating their slaves better than the Jewish people were treating their slaves.
Okay.
At that time, and I encourage you to look into that too. Like they were literally the pioneers of moving away from slavery.
I have looked into it, and that's how I know that that's actually incorrect. I know that there's a lot of law codes that are pretty much the same, if not maybe even a little bit better than the ancient Hebrew Israelites. But I do understand what you're saying, that from a human perspective, absent no God, throw God out of the whole mix. These were just ancient cultures doing what they thought was best by what they thought God was. And that's fine. I completely understand that perspective. But the moment you put God into it and say that God is the objective standard of morality and God is the one giving these laws that allow things like rape and slavery, then we have a problem, because you can no longer use the argument, well, that was these ancient cultures back in the day. No, it's either God's morals are objective and these are them, or they're not. And God's morals either change or God is inconsistent and wrong. So,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that through prophecy, through the Bible staying the way the Bible has stayed throughout the entirety of Western. I mean, like the Dead Sea Scrolls show us that the Bible has not changed very much at all. And the Dead Sea Scrolls are the books we're reading today.
Sure, but they're just they were just written copies of other copies. The Dead Sea Scrolls prove very well how
we read today, and there's not very many like different verses, and there's not very many different. There's only minor changes.
Sure, I think the Dead Sea Scrolls are a great example of how if something is revered greatly, it can be copied with care very well by people, and I think that that's fantastic. It's a great piece of human history that we have evidence for, but that doesn't mean that the things that were written in it have never been changed or are true.
Well, it just showed us, though, that the books that were written which are written in the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Old Testament, like Isaiah 53 or like Psalm 22, it showed us that these prophecies of Jesus were written about before 300 years before Jesus, and we know that they were written 300 years before Jesus. And so when these prophecies that are being fulfilled by Jesus in Isaiah 53 and Psalms 22, and there's tons of others, but those are the two that I look at the most, and I'm just like stunned because it's crazy. But both of those verses align exactly with how Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John say that Jesus is going to live his life, say that Jesus is going to die, say that he's going to rise again. I mean, the entirety of Jesus' life is predicted 300 years before Jesus, down to like they're going to cast lots for his clothing. And this is all written just of what we know about, the earliest ones that we know about. We know are direct copies of the Dead Sea Scrolls that are found in 300 BC or 300 BC is when they were written, and so we know that it backs it up from that just gap of time where there was not many things being written. It backs up the fact that people were still following that, still believing in these things, and still writing about these things. And so Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22 to me just are insane. Like, they predict crucifixion before they even had crucifixion. Nobody pierced hands and feet and passed away and died before the Roman crucifixion. Like, nobody died by piercing their hands and their feet. And yet it's talked about over 300 years, more than likely over 300 years, because our first copies of Isaiah and Psalms are like 600 to 700 to 800, 1,000 in some cases, some fragments. Like, these books are written so long ago and have been talked about from the Jewish people for so long that Jesus comes, and when he fulfills it all, it's just crazy. It's like, how do you explain that he fulfills it perfectly?
Sure, I would simply say he doesn't. But from a Christian perspective, I can completely understand, because I too was convinced by Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22 and passages of the like. But I think doing a deeper dive when I was not a Christian anymore, and realizing the whole context of the books, like I understand now that Isaiah 53 is about the nation of Israel, and I know that because the context of all the chapters that came before then are right, identifying the servant as Israel. They right, identify who the servant is.
It talks about the servant as being a person. Hold on, so let's go because I promise it doesn't work.
Okay, so to finish up real quick.
Yeah, you're good.
And so I know that Isaiah 53, because by reading the end of Isaiah 52, we see that the person speaking, quote unquote, in Isaiah 53 are the nations of the world, who are talking about Israel, who because of Israel, they will be brought to God. And it is because of Israel's suffering, because they are about to go into the Babylonian exile, and it is because how they are going to be broken, how the whole world is going to see them broken and beaten, and it is because of how they will be risen again by God that the nations of the earth are going to recognize that, and through that be brought to God. This is about the nation of Israel, and I see that so clearly now. I didn't see it before when I had my bias as a Christian saying, well, Matthew says that this is how it's tied, so it must be tied, and whatever I don't understand, it doesn't matter because it must mean Jesus. Now I don't take it doesn't matter. I try to actually find the answers.
He was despised, and we did not esteem him.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried.
Sure.
Yet we ourselves esteem him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Sure. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastising for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned our own way. But the Lord has caused the iniquity of all of us to fall on him. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb he was led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that is silent before its shearers, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, and for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people, to whom the stroke was due. His grave was assigned with wicked men, yet he died in a rich man's tomb. Because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth, the Lord was pleased. And I guess that's really all. I mean, it goes farther than that, but to talk about it for just a second and ask how you're getting that this is Israel, because to me it's so clearly talking about someone who's crucified, someone who's going to, okay, for the sake of my people, his grave was assigned with wicked men, so he dies next to wicked men, and yet he was in a rich man's tomb. And so if he's going to die, Jesus dies on the cross, right, next to two wicked men who both were wicked, but his tomb is Joseph Arimathea? Is that Joseph Arimathea's tomb, which was like the really, really rich guy?
Sure.
And he gave him his tomb. And
Sure.
so it's like, I think there's just like a whole bunch of like throughout this entirety of it, really, like he before his shears was silent, right? Like that to me, Jesus did not go against when he got hit, when he got beat, when everything was happening, he just took it. He did not try to get out of it. And so I guess like to me, I just I read this one and think that it's easily talking about him. But I guess like Psalm 22 to me and Psalm 1.
Well, wait, but before we go too far,
also-
before we start jumping into Psalms,
Or you're good.
with the passages that are before Isaiah 53, where it identifies the servant as Israel, where are you suddenly
Absolutely.
getting that suddenly in chapter 53, servant suddenly does not mean Israel?
Well, because in other books like Daniel, the same thing is happening, where he talks like, I think it's in Daniel, where he gives a prophecy of a man who is to come later, which we know of, I think is John. I forget exactly who it is, but he gives a prophecy of a man who's going to come later, who we have no idea about, and he talks about how he is the son of blank, when we know that person during that time period who he says the name of is not actually a son of that person. But guess who was? The person who came later. And so it's like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like there's prophecies hidden sometimes in different books, and you can just match them. They just work. It's almost like cracking a code. It's like he might have been talking about Israel in this, but he also was like divinely inspired by the Holy Spirit to also include Jesus. And you just can find that. It's like, to me, it's like cracking a code. And I think you see the same thing in Psalm 22. Like, real quick, because I always think this one's so crazy. Just really quick. So sorry. I know I've been going crazy, but first verse.
You're fine. Like I said,
God,
this is
my
all
God.
fascinating to talk about.
Yeah, I enjoy the conversations too, man. But like for instance, he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And so what does Jesus say like when he's on the cross? Like when he's about to die, he says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Well, why does he say that? It's not because he thinks that God is going to forsake, or he's forsaking him, but it's instead to tell all the Jewish people who are around the cross and watching Jesus die that he's fulfilling this entire chapter. And so, because when he's saying, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The Jewish people at this time didn't have chapters of their writings. They just all knew the first verse of that chapter. And so, because they memorized it. And so they all would hear, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And they'd go back and read it, or they'd go back and recite it.
Well, majority of them couldn't read. In that
right.
time
They would have
period,
to,
so they would have to go to
right.
the temple and
But
hear it or
some
something.
some of them definitely did. Like we know Paul read. We know and so there were a few that did though. And I'm definitely
Well, Paul wasn't a normal common man. He was a religious leader, and then
Right.
grew to this influence and power, and
Jewish
he had
religious
money.
leader.
So he
Right.
wasn't like your average, fisherman like Peter
Who
was
is
before he got called.
killing or calling for the killing of Christians. So no doubt.
So when it comes to Psalm 22, Psalm 22 is a passage from David lamenting about his situation. His enemies are closing in, things aren't looking good for him, and he's crying out to God for help. And he starts it off with, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Right.
When it comes to Jesus saying this on the cross, to me, this is nothing special. Simply because, in my perspective, this is a man who was seen as a rabbi. He was, he taught the scriptures. He went around, people followed him, and
He
now
knew
he's
him,
dying.
absolutely.
Yeah, and now he's dying. He's dying, and he laments. He goes to something in his scriptures that he is relating to in that moment, and he cries it out. And I think that happens every single day. Hold on, I'm almost done. I let you speak.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So, and I think that happens every day, even now today, when people are distressed, they'll start quoting Bible verses. Psalm, I think 23 is a big one, what you call it, the Lord is my shepherd and stuff like that, though I walk through the valley of death. People will quote scripture that they feel is relatable to them in that moment. And if someone is in an extreme distress and an extreme lament, that makes perfect sense to me. So Jesus crying this out in his final moments, it's okay, cool. So what?
But do you so for me though, and I know it's a long chapter, but to me it's strange how much it fits. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's like the entirety of it, but it gets strange how closely it resembles Christ's crucifixion and what he was saying he was there to do. And so to me it's hard to argue that this is talking about David. It's just hard to say that this is talking about to me, again, this is just plugging it into the code and seeing if it fits, and it actually fits perfect. It's I don't know how you could explain this whole chapter without Christ.
It's Psalm 22?
I guess, hold on. Do you want to read it?
I unfortunately am running out of time. I got about 5 minutes left before I gotta go.
No worries.
I would be down to set up another time to go through Psalm 22.
I will follow you. I'll definitely come back. But dude, no, definitely check out Psalm 22 because it's actually it's crazy. It's it doesn't make sense how many, because this is the one where it talks about casting lots. It talks about, I mean, it's crazy. It gets into every little detail of it, and it's just, I don't know. To me, it's wild.
Yeah, I've read it before, and I would love to go through it with you as well. I just don't think that we could, give it justice in 4 or 5 minutes or whatever. But because I think you and I have shown very clearly that just by a couple verses we could go on for a long time about it.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for having this conversation. This isn't and I just want to let you know, in my intentions, I have no wants to deconvert you or change your faith or anything like that, but
I appreciate that.
I like explaining my perspective on these things and why I think what I do, and I like hearing what you have to say as well.
Absolutely, man. Me too. I really do appreciate you giving me the floor too to do it too. But I don't think I'm really not trying to. I mean, obviously, I want you to come back to him, but I guess it's I'm not trying to convert you. I'm more so just trying to show you how I'm getting there, what my perspective is on certain things. And I'm with you with the questions, man. There's some things that I just don't have the answers for, and I mean, I have to look at it I guess it's a different time period. It's sometimes that's, to me, it's hard to really comprehend because we're in a completely different time period where if something like that happened, anything like that happened today, anything they were doing like that happened today, it would just be crazy, So
yeah,
but during
I
that
100% agree.
Super prevalent everywhere, and so I don't know, but man, I really do appreciate you having me up, man. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, and like I said, thanks for being up here. I appreciate your time as well.
Later, man.
All right, take care. We'll just